Hello there, and welcome to Module 3 of the course. In this chapter, we are looking at proportions, and you will see the connection between ratios and proportions, hopefully very soon. And we'll use proportions to solve a lot of word problems. So our ultimate goal here is to solve practical word problems, math applications using the skills that you've learned. So I'm on page 20 of the book. This is the cover for Module 3. And if you scroll on over to page 21, here is the lesson on proportions. The first thing we need to do is to define proportion. And a proportion is an equation. So there is an equal sign that's involved in a proportion that says two ratios are equal. So in the last chapter, we spent a lot of time talking about ratios. In this chapter, we're going to put together the ratios to make a proportion. And I'll show you how to test a proportion and how to solve one. And I have no idea where this came from. I'm sorry if that shows up in your book. I cannot erase it. So we'll just have to bear with it. I developed this workbook in another program, so I can't erase like I normally can. It just won't let me do that. So I apologize. The math rule says to test a proportion, compare cross products. And I'm going to show you how to do that in example number 1. Before I do that, though, I want to show you something right here. The word product, when you see it in a math problem, is referring to multiplying, most always. So we're going to be cross-multiplying to test a proportion. So let's take a look at example number 1. The question says, are 12/48 and 60/240 equal ratios? Well, we could use the skills that we've learned for simplifying and break both of these down to lowest terms. That would certainly work, but that would take a while. So here is the way to test a proportion. Now this thing is the proportion. The two equal ratios form a proportion. And we're going to test to see if it is a true proportion. What we're doing, we're testing that equality. We're testing that equal sign to see if it's true or false. So the first thing I need to do is to multiply one direction. And I would encourage you to draw this thing that looks like a peanut. You'll hear me use the term peanut, even though that's not a proper math term. What we're about to find is a cross product. So we're going to cross multiply diagonally. So using your calculator, you want to do 12 times 240, and that's 2,880. So that is just a basic multiplication problem on the calculator. Then you want to cross the other way. So you're working in a diagonal direction. So 48 times 60. 48 times 60 is 2880. So we would say that the cross products are equal. And by cross product, I'm referring to those two numbers. So the cross products are equal. Yes, this is a proportion. If the cross products are equal, you have a true proportion. Okay, let's test this one. Are 16/70 and 5/11 equal ratios. Well, when they say equal ratios, what they're meaning is, are they proportionate? Are they a mom and a baby? Are they truly equal? Are they proportional? Those are all different ways of saying the same thing. So here is 16/70ths. And 5/11ths. And we're testing that equality. We want to know if these are truly proportionate. So we will do, and it doesn't matter which direction you go first. 70 times 5 is 350. And then cross the other way. 16 times 11 is 176. So what has happened this time? Well, we could say that the cross products are not equal. So this is not a true proportion. That mama does not belong to that baby, or vice versa. They're not proportionate. So this is a no. It is not a proportion. So I gave you an example of one that is a proportion and one that is not a proportion. And that is called testing a proportion. So the math rule is testing whether or not that is true equality. So now I want to show you how to solve a proportion. We're going to use that same math concept to solve a proportion. And the rule says to solve a proportion, you find the cross product, then divide by the third number. So let's do 4 of these examples, and I'm going to zoom in so that we're just focused on one at a time. For some folks with learning issues, this is very important, that you just focus on one area at a time. Okay, when I go to do a cross product, I don't want to do this because 75 and x, I can't multiply those. So in this case, the cross product has to go this way. And the easiest way I can tell you to remember this is to draw the peanut and make sure you have a number in both ends of the peanut. So where the peanuts would be, you need to have numbers, not letters. So we're going to solve first with cross product. So 90 times 15. And I encourage you to use your calculator as often as you need to. Don't miss this because you mismultiply, which is what I do all the time. So that cross product is 1,350. And then since we're solving, we're going to take that cross product and divide by the 75. That's the piece that was not in the peanut. So that will always be your divisor. So divide by 75, you get an answer of 18. So the letter X is 18. And I could erase that X and put the 18 in there. And then I could check the proportion. So if I do 18 times 75, I should come up with something familiar. And sure enough, I do. So that tells me that my solution, my 18, is the correct missing peanut in that blue circle. Okay, let's look at number 4. We're solving a proportion. The good news is this works the same way every time. So once you learn how to do this, you can use this for lots and lots of things in math. If I could only teach you one thing, in all of math, this would be the one thing. Okay, on this one, I need a cross product, but I can't use a letter, so it has to go this way. So 25 times 7 should be 175, but I'm going to check it to be sure. And divide that by 5. And that is 35. So this time your x, your missing number, is 35. And all we're doing is saying, when you see the x, say to yourself the missing number. So the missing number is 35. That's all that x is a missing number. So anytime you see it, instead of saying x, you can say missing number. And that's what you're trying to find. Okay, number 5. Now you might be able to look at this one and figure it out. If you notice right there, all I've done is add a 0. This fellow right here got added on. So you might be able to guess the top number, but I'm not a big fan of guessing. I would rather know for sure. So we're going to multiply. Now the downside of using this method is that sometimes you have a lot of zeros to work with. So be careful when you do those. This particular one has 5 zeros. So you want to make sure that you get all of those accounted for. And then we're going to divide by the number that's not in the peanut, which is the 200. And you will come up with 1,000. So this is a tricky part of this kind of math. If you're not careful, you will lose your zeros. So make sure you count those carefully. So x in this problem, missing number, is 1,000. Okay. All right, the last example is number 6. And we need a cross product without a letter in it. So I'm going to take this one, 54 times 9. So 54 times 9 is 486. And then we're going to divide that by 6. I believe it's 81, but make sure. So the missing number this time is 81. And I do want to tell you that that does not have to be an X. It could be any letter, or there may just be an empty space there. You may just be looking at something like that, where there's nothing there, but that's still a missing number. So whatever is there, the symbol wise has nothing to do with the process. It doesn't change the math process at all. Okay, so you have learned to test a proportion, and you've learned to solve a proportion. So here is an assignment number 4, where I want you to test numbers 1 through 5. So your answers for 1 through 5 will be yes or no. And then solve for numbers 6 through 10. In those, you'll actually come up with an answer to be your value for X. So I want you to stop this video and try the assignment. And then I will be back in the next video and we will check your work. So best of luck, and I'll see you soon.